Guys, welcome back. In today's episode, I sit down with Angela Wu. She's a breathwork facilitator and someone I just met a few days ago because I did one of her breathwork workshops. It was such an incredible experience that I felt like I had to get her on the podcast, learn more about her story, more about breathwork, the whys and the hows behind everything. And I actually share one of the profound things that I took away from our session together. So I hope you guys enjoy this session. Angela, welcome to the Process podcast.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I tweaked my neck this morning in training.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling a little bit stiff right now. And I haven't done one of these neck tweaks in a long time. Totally justified. I was not moving very well in my training sessions. So
Yeah.
but apart from that, no, life is very good.
Well, I have a shoebox under my feet, so my feet can touch the ground. So I'm doing even better.
You are the first guest to ever have to have a shoebox under your feet. You know that?
Grounded, rooted.
Yes. Angela, I want to start by talking about how we met. It is right now a Wednesday, and so I met you for the very first time 3 days ago, and I attended your breathwork workshop. Do you call it workshop?
Yeah, I guess
Session?
so. A workshop.
Group session?
Workshop.
Yeah.
Some people call it class.
It was my first ever breathwork session of that kind before, and it was a very spontaneous decision for me to join. Kieran from Float, where I go do my floats, I bumped into him after my float, and he just said, I'm doing this breathwork session on Sunday. And I was like, cool, send me the details. And I was genuinely like, you know what? I really want to do something different right now. Always wanted to experiment in breathwork stuff. And specifically, might sound weird, I'd obviously seen and heard about some of these breathwork sessions where people are like getting really emotional, they're unlocking traumas, they're crying, they're screaming, they're shouting. And truth be told, I've always seen them being like, how does that happen? Like, how does that work? And I really want to experience it. And I would love for that to actually happen to me. But that's what my thinking was. And so as soon as I asked him, like, well, what's kind of breathwork session about? He didn't really give me too much, to be honest. He's like, I don't know, this like girl's coming in and it's about like trauma and healing. And I was like, okay, I'm in.
Sign me up.
Yeah, sign me up. Went home, told my wife, I'm like, would you like to do this breathwork session with me? She was like, breathwork? No, not really. I was like, well, I'm 100% doing it. And it's on a Sunday. So I would love for you to join. She was like, why not? Let's just go ahead and do it. When she said, Ed, why do you want to do it? My response was actually, I would just love to pick up some new breathwork techniques. You know, I do breathing work of some form every day, you know, whether it's just like deep breaths between stressful bouts or, you know, intense bouts of work and focus, or it's part of a meditation process, or, you know, there's conscious breathing before a workout, depending what the type of workout is. I think about breathing a lot.
Yeah.
And so I just thought maybe I'm going to pick up some new tools from you in your session that's going to help me, you know, be a higher performing individual. And I'm sure we're going to go into it at some point in time. Like, what I got out of your session was so far from what I thought I was going to take out of it. And it was like genuinely a really incredible experience that I will be talking about, you know, till the day that I die. I really mean it. Like, I feel like something has been unlocked in me that needed to be unlocked, that I've been trying to unlock for a really long time. And I will never forget the workshop that we did. So I'm going to start by saying thank you for that.
You have me on the edge of my seat because I still don't know the details of what happened to you in that session. And you're going to tell me later in this podcast, but
I will.
It's been really hyped out now in my head.
Yeah, better be good. But listen, that's how we met. So obviously here we are 3 days later. I moved fast. I wanted to get you on the podcast because I know you're only in Hong Kong for a limited amount of time. And I'm very fascinated about you and your story and the work that you do. So maybe to start things off, please, like, who are you, Angela, and what do you do?
Man, who am I? That is such a big question. I could answer it in so many ways.
Answer it in the way that feels most natural to you.
Yeah, I guess if I were to describe, you know, I'm discovering more about myself every day, but in this very moment in time, what feels true is that I am very highly sensitive to energy. I'm very artistic by nature, but I have a very developed logical mind. I really love analytical thinking. I think I am very drawn to exploration and curiosity in my life. So a lot of the things I do is to cross-fertilize, to learn, to guide, and to share what I've learned. Like much like you as a coach, I imagine it's all about figuring things out and then sharing that with others. So what I do now is I work with people to connect with their emotions. So a lot of people, especially me in the past, we live in our heads and we don't know how to feel our feelings. Like, what is that? How do we get started? And I help people connect with their bodies. So, how to listen to your gut and your intuition, and how to restore trust and safety in your body. And then thirdly, I would help people connect with their inner child. And that's been really monumental for me. So, how can we reparent ourselves and give ourselves the things we were missing as a child to feel unconditionally loved, accepted, or seen or important? And how can we start acting from that place instead of the sort of versions of us that we've created to protect ourselves and to feel kind of okay in the world? So, I guess that's part of who I am. I'm also an actress and a director. I love writing poetry. I love movement. I teach economics and law on the side. I'm all sorts of things. But today, this is what feels true for me.
I love it. When we sat down um for the breathwork session, we had, how many people do we have there? 30?
I
30
think
people?
32.
32 people. It's a lot of people in a pretty
Two
small
people
room.
canceled last minute. I was so glad because we would not have been able to fit them in.
Yeah, it would have been
I
tight.
looked across the room and I was just shocked. I was pinching myself. I couldn't believe that these people were here for my event.
So
Still,
cool.
yeah,
You had us all sit in a circle to start,
yeah,
and you started by introducing yourself.
yeah.
When I hear what you just shared as to who you are and what you do, I'm always fascinated in like connecting the dots. It's like, how does one become? I mean, the same way. How did I become a coach? I would love to know the stories, all the life events, and the things that happened in your life that brought you to being the person you are today. And you can go back as far as you want to go back.
Wow. I mean, it really does go really far because one of my traumas I remember is from when I was in the womb and I heard
Wow.
my parents fighting, and I discovered this in hypnosis. And in that moment, I decided to turn around and not come out. That's why I was a C-section baby. But
So okay, stop. Okay, so I've heard about this,
yeah.
right? So I've heard about inner child work, and
Yeah.
I've heard about things in the womb. Tell
Mm.
me, like, this memory. Is it a vivid memory? Like, how? How?
I did something called rapid transformational therapy, and I was brought under sort of in hypnosis to this memory where I was literally floating around. It was all dark and I could hear voices. So I gathered that I was in the womb. And this is one of the traumas I released in breathwork as well, because there was the umbilical cord around my neck. So in a rebirthing breathwork, I release that feeling of being trapped in places, in relationships, in jobs through breathwork, a pre birth memory. So trauma can really go that far back.
Well,
It's shocking.
okay, sorry, continue.
So, okay, I guess what I'm saying is everything that has happened in my life, I feel has brought me to this point. I think I'm somebody who has historically been in the extremes of things. So, extreme academia. So, Cambridge, 45 out of 45 on the IB, first class from Cambridge. I got a scholarship. I was a perfectionist. And then I moved to Ibiza. I moved deep into partying and deep into traveling. What's this about? Having fun, meeting people, adventure. I went deep into, all sorts of, corporate things like management consulting. And then I went deep into learning pole dancing and being my divine feminine. And I think all of that exploration culminated into this terrible place in 2020, which was my dark night of the soul. It was my rock bottom. I had all of the ingredients for a really intense rebirth. Firstly, I had relationships. So I got married and then I destroyed my marriage. My disorganized attachment was really kicking in hard. So I really hurt him and I didn't show up as the person he deserved. So that really had a big impact on me, having to forgive myself for that. Secondly, I had my health. I was addicted to drugs. I was running away from myself as hard as I could. I would wake up and do a line. I couldn't get through the day. I was depressed. I was feeling so much pain. At one point, I didn't even know what I was putting into my body anymore. And I just remember for months and months this feeling of I don't even care if I die. If I overdose, I don't even care. What am I living for? So lost, so confused. And then COVID. So I was trapped here physically. I had to sit with my stuff. A lot of shit. A lot of stuff from my childhood. And that's also the year my mom died of terminal cancer. So I had to look at our entire relationship, my entire childhood, and I had to also come to terms with mortality, right? So all of that came to a head in 1 year. And that's when I sort of began the healing process of, hey, let me just forget everything I think I know. And let me just try to see things from a different way. I can't keep going the way I'm going anymore. I physically can't. My construct of life is not only fragile, but it has fallen apart. And that's when all of the things started to change. I started to look up at the stars, and instead of just seeing stars, I would hear them speak to me like, you're not done yet. I'd close my eyes and I could hear my heart go, you're still here. It's not your time. Everything had a deeper meaning. And that was my big spiritual awakening. And breathwork was part of that. I also did plant ceremonies. I did ayahuasca. I did iboga. I meditated so much. Um, I'm going off on a tangent.
No, you're not. It's perfect. I guess where I wanna just pause you for a second. And it's like, you said in the deepest, darkest moments, there was a point where you just realized that you needed to do something different.
Yeah.
But what was that point? Like what happened? What had to happen to pull you out of that cycle of doing the things you were doing to say, I need to make a change now?
I think it was almost forced upon me. My heart had cracked open by all of these events, and I cried almost every single day for a year. And it was this overwhelming grief, overwhelming sense of mourning, and starting to see things from a different perspective, starting to have more compassion, for example, with my mother, with my ex husband now, um, and realizing that my unprocessed trauma was hurting everyone I loved. And I was stuck in stories and assumptions and reactivity, and I was living in a loop. And you get to the point of impact, where the cost of staying the same is too high. You're so unhappy. It's not even that you have nothing to lose. It's it's more about just what am I holding on to anymore? That whole ego construct of, hot-headedness, stubbornness, or, argumentativeness, all of this stuff. You just end up letting it go because it's not bringing you anything.
Did you know though at the point in time that you had trauma?
No
So
idea.
I'm yeah, okay, because you're talking about this like you knew at the time I've got this trauma and that's negatively impacting people around me in my life now. But I'm assuming that through the work that you did, you now
Mhm.
retroactive, you can look back and now piece it all together. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly that. At the time, let me try to bring myself back there. I just remember a lot of arguments, a lot of tears, a lot of sort of not being able to control my choices. So, especially with addiction, for example, a lot of, like we were talking about earlier, habit, routine, numbing, escaping, a lot of, um, yeah, just reactivity. So it was just, I think that's when I developed a better witness part, a part behind all of the behavior of, hey, why am I doing things the way I am? I think that's when it started.
And then what was the first, maybe there wasn't a first step, like maybe there wasn't a first intervention, but at what point, you talked about ayahuasca and, I guess like using things to help you be a bit more introspective and see things through a different light. Like, how did that come
Mhm.
about? Was that reading? Did you see someone? Did they recommend you do this? Or were you just like, I'll do anything?
You know what's crazier? It's actually the fact that in my darkest moment, I felt the hands of God or this divine creator catch me through strangers, through kindness, through in those moments of silence when I'm in my bed struggling to fall asleep because I think I'm about to have a heart attack, or in those moments where I've cried all the tears that day holding my mom's hand in hospital. In those moments, I could feel something bigger, a higher power, and then I started to receive messages, downloads without reading any books, without listening to any podcasts. Things just began to trickle in, these messages. I would look at a plant and it would speak to me. So I don't even feel like there was any agency in that. I woke up and it wasn't me learning. It wasn't me healing myself. It was literally sort of like a blindfold taken off, and a lot of pain with that, and a lot of tragedy with that, and then also a lot of love. It was like I became alive. I could feel the goosebumps on my skin again because I went from being numb to feeling so much grief. And as soon as you feel the grief, and grief is sort of like what the tears and the rain that cleanses all of the old stuff. As soon as I let myself feel all of the grief, I could feel a lot of the love again.
Would you say, have you always been a spiritual person?
Absolutely not. I was a skeptic before.
Yeah. So again, like the way that you're talking about being with your mum and like, holding a hand going through these hard times and like seeing these again, is this a piecing together looking back at those days, or was there like did you genuinely feel like there was a spiritual presence?
To be honest, in the beginning, I thought I was going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Went so against
understand
my
that.
beliefs. I was so trained in the scientific method, and I was so factual. I used to have friends who talked about their gut feelings, and I would gaslight them. Be like,
Mm,
no, that's not true. That's
yeah.
you should use logic a bit more. And so it was actually really hard for me in the beginning to accept that all of these miraculous things were happening, and it took quite a few of those sort of extraordinary events for me to actually confirm that I wasn't making it up in my head. Um, so no, I was opposite of spiritual. I was always anti Chinese medicine in the beginning. I was anti anything with no evidence.
Yeah. I would say that I'm very much the same.
Yeah.
Have very much come from there. And I don't think my level of spirituality is as deep and as embodied in me as it is in you. And I just get that feeling just like speaking to you and just hearing those stories. But I very much believe in a something. Like there is something that's connecting me with the world around me, things that aren't just coincidences.
Mm.
I can see recurring patterns that happen to me, good and bad, and to people around me. I can see it and I can feel it, but I definitely have not always been that way.
What happened for you? Did something?
I had a feeling you're gonna ask me that just as I was saying that. Um, I don't think that there wasn't a specific point in time, I think, that I started leaning into spirituality more. I think it's as I have just dug a little deeper into figuring me out.
Mm.
It's just this one of these natural things that I think have happened. Actually, I think, you know what? I think like daily gratitude practices, I think I could actually probably piece that as something that has made me just more aware. And I think the more I practice gratitude, and it's something I do every single morning, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And I look at the end of my day, I do the same thing again.
I love that.
And I think that just brings awareness to things that I have in my life. And that has, I don't know, I'm actually struggling to find the language to describe it. But I think over time, that has just made me, yeah, believe that something is out there guiding me
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I actually think every path leads to a spiritual path, whether it's science, whether it's art, whether it's accounting. At the very end of it, you kind of just gain this bigger, more profound sense of knowing. Because let's say you're a scientist and you use the scientific method to verify what you know. So the scientific method says that if we observe all of these data points, all of this empirical evidence, and if it happens 10,000 times, and of those 10,000 times, 99.99% of the time something happens, then we can say with 99.99% of confidence that that's the truth. A real scientist knows that that's just a confidence. That is not the truth. And let's say you only ever see a white swans. The day you see a black one, your entire hypothesis is overturned. So a true scientist is more concerned with what we don't know, right? So actually science is a fake sense of knowing. It's an illusion of certainty, which our ego loves, right? But a true scientist, I think even Albert Einstein, or if you look at quantum physics, like I got really into string theory when I was 16. If science says everything is space and energy, that's exactly what spirituality says. So these two things are not so much in conflict or irreconcilable as we think. They actually are increasingly confirming the same thing. So you even have, for example, the psychiatrist Brian Weiss. He wrote Many Lives, Many Masters, talking about the afterlife. And he's done empirical studies with his patients on past life regression, for example. And even, Albert Einstein supposedly wrote a letter about the universal force of love. It's just from which angle are we finding God? Is it while we're playing piano or while we're painting something
Yeah.
or while we're crunching numbers?
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode with a quick shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. I've been using this journal for 2 years and it has made a massive impact on my physical, but mostly my mental well-being. It is a guided journal backed by neuro and behavioral science, which I actually didn't know at the time. It has questions for you to answer at the start of the day, at the end of the day, end of every week, end of every month. And it's brought so much self-awareness to me of the things that positively and negatively impact my life. So if you're someone who cares about your physical and your mental well-being, which I think you do because you listen to this podcast, then go and grab yourself a Today Well Spent. Use the discount code THEPROCESS, one word in capitals, to get your discount. Yeah. Okay, where my brain is going right now is because I know that's something you talk about in your bio. And I think you might have even said it in a workshop, maybe not, but you've talked about this idea of bridging spirituality with science. And I'm getting a touch of it there in the way that you think about it. So I can see that, young Angela was very science minded, matter of fact, give me the evidence. And without it, it's probably woo woo and doesn't exist. And now you've been exposed to probably the opposite end of the spectrum, but actually you think that the sweet spots kind of somewhere between the two.
That's it. And exactly because I've been there, I want to bring it back to my friends, bring it back. My dad's a doctor. My mom was a nurse. So I'm very fascinated in medicine and anatomy. So when someone asks me about chakras, I want to bring it to the endocrine system. I want to talk about the pineal gland being the third eye. I want to talk about the thyroid being the throat chakra. So all of these links give spirituality so much more legitimacy. So you see people studying ayahuasca now, and people who were skeptical or scientific before are now being more open-minded to a spiritual way of life. And that to me is so important. I think globally, if we treat statistics as king, we forget that everything is caveated. All studies are flawed with assumptions, and we forget that there is actually no objective truth, and that on the opposite side of one fundamental truth is another fundamental truth. And just as easy as it is to villainize science from a spiritual perspective or to villainize spirituality from a scientific perspective, we need to be looking at the intersections. Thanks for listening to my little passionate rant there.
No, I love it. I mean, okay, how do you explain spirituality then? Because this is something that I think I have struggled to get the language around the idea of what spirituality is. I think like the easiest way I probably try to talk about it is like I said, like I feel like we're connected on a deeper level to everything that's around us.
That's it.
But when you're trying to explain spirituality to a scientist, which avenue do you go down?
So I love that you say that. It reminds me of the book The Alchemist.
Yes.
Being connected to the bigger, the divine order that behind all the chaos is a secret order, right? The way I would explain it is that science is just as much of a quote unquote religion as spirituality. They're two distinct ways of knowing. You can know things through science, so what people have observed around us and detailed, or you can have a sense of a way of knowing, which is your own connection to the greater. So this sense of oneness, you can have it during anytime you engage in a flow activity while you're working out. You can have it in your yoga practice and meditation. You can have so many avenues to connect to the
Give me some
the
like
one.
real life for the skeptic.
Yeah.
Give me some like real life examples of like everyday activities where like there is this connection to the one, like in the same way you just explained, meditation and training.
A real life example. I guess it's so individual, isn't it? Because if you are a skeptic, the first thing you need to even entertain is the idea that everything happens for a reason, instead of, I would use the example of the Big Bang, right? The fact that me and you, Ed, are sitting here today, the fact that the Big Bang happened at all is enough for me to believe that miracles exist, and all of this is a miracle. For others, that's not a high enough evidence threshold. For others, you might need to, I guess, go to a Vipassana and sit every single day with your restlessness and sit cross-legged and meditate to feel that sense of deep surrender into a greater order. I guess what I would say to a skeptical person,
I'm not saying that you try and convince skeptics, but like I'm just trying to, because this is probably where these conversations happen, right? You've got one very deeply spiritual person, you have one who isn't, and they engage in this conversation where it's like, I feel like the spiritual person can understand where the non-spiritual person is, but the non-spiritual person can't understand where the spiritual person's coming from.
Yeah,
Would you agree in that?
that's my dad, for example.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I struggle with when I speak to him is this idea that, everything's meaningless. It's just, things just happen. People just die. There's no meaning to any of it. I guess a certain part of it is choice. So you have to choose to believe that if you can give your life meaning, why not give it beautiful meanings? If it comes that's the leap of faith, I guess. What if I saw it this way? What if I chose to try a new perspective today? And I guess that's a choice, an individual choice.
Mm, tough. I mean, like I'm only, as I've just gone through the journey, I've only started thinking of, again, like I said, like I feel like a lot of my feelings around spirituality are things that are in my head, and it's just like these feelings.
Have you ever been to like one crazy psychic or tarot reader that has blown your mind and you can't go back from that?
For some reason, I just can't get behind tarot cards.
Mm,
I've tried recently actually, because I think as I've become more spiritual,
mm,
I've been like, okay, I'm definitely more open to this stuff now. Before I was
mm.
probably definitely a bit of a skeptic, and I'd only do it when I was really drunk, to be honest. But I actually went in Thailand, and I went to this guy who was just on the side of the street, and I paid him some money and had him read my tarot cards, and I was just like, this is not enough. You
Yeah,
know what I
I feel
mean?
you.
He left me like wanting to ask him 50 more questions,
Yeah,
and I feel like the answers were just too ambiguous.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? That it
yeah,
was like it could apply to anyone.
yeah. You
Now,
almost need the one psychic who says your brother's name is this,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah,
this
I
is your
need,
favorite color.
and okay, so this is maybe another thing that I think I need to dig into in myself. So a few of my friends have worked with a psychic. Now this woman is based in the UK, and it's a 20-minute phone conversation,
Yeah.
and it's literally like there is no questionnaire or like give me some background information on you. It's literally dial this number, book a time in, and she is going to blow your mind. Right. And I'm like, okay, sure. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I've had multiple people that are nowhere near as spiritual as I am, have had this conversation with this lady, and have like hung up the phone being like,
Holy shit.
how the hell did she know all of that?
Yeah.
I'm talking about like, connection with deceased grandparents 50 years ago, talking about life events that have happened that Instagram will never give you that information as to how she might have got that.
Mm.
And so this woman's contact kept on coming back to me. I think these people were like, Ed, I think you'd really enjoy this. And a part of me was actually a bit scared about it.
Mm.
And the part of me that was scared about doing it was I very much exist in a space of like, I like to take life as it comes.
Mhm.
And a part of like life's excitement for me is a mystery of what lies around the corner and being just open to it.
Yeah.
Something that scares me is the idea of me potentially knowing, or me creating an idea of what I know is going to happen in the future,
Yeah.
because something a psychic might tell me,
I agree with
and
that.
that changing the
It
way that
messes the fate.
it changes the way that I'm going to now live my life.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of that.
Me too. I feel
Even
like it's
even if it was
messing
a
with your destiny in a
even
way.
if it was a positive, like a really like, you're going to make $5 billion, you never have to work your life again in
Yeah.
5 years. I'd be like, I wish I didn't know that.
I love that you bring that up because that brings me to another point about subconscious beliefs, right? It's if you were to talk to a skeptic and you told them about the placebo effect, Joe Dispenza
Yeah.
talks about this a lot. You will make come true whatever you believe will come true. And if you've read Fast Thinking, Slow Thinking,
Yes.
its
Great.
logic can be used to justify anything that you're actually feeling emotionally, the emotional experience you want. And so if you can comprehend that on a logic to logic point of view, I will placebo myself into believing that I'm drunk, even though it's alcohol free beer, for example, then you know that there's something deeper there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer your question, no, I haven't. And yeah, tarot cards, I do it almost, it's like a bit of light-hearted entertainment. That's almost the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And I don't take anything too concrete from it. I
Yeah.
don't base my life and change my life around something that they're going to say.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's smart because I
I
think
don't
there
know.
are
I don't know
also
if it
people
is.
out there who aren't actually,
I'm not going to lie. This guy in Thailand, I was like on the edge of my seat. And at the end, he went 5,000 baht. And I was like, I already paid you.
anticlimax.
I'd
Yeah.
already given you your money. And this was like an extra, like, give me a donation for like this guy.
Oh,
And then I was
yeah.
like, okay, no.
Been
No.
scammed.
Yeah, I felt like I was scammed. Okay, Angela, I'll come back to your story now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm with you now on on where you've, where how your life brought you to this point in time. spirits that, things started to happen
Thank you
around
for
you.
being the structure to our flow. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so yeah, you can also see that I can get quite misled as well. Where does breathwork come into it? And like, what led you now to becoming a breathwork facilitator? Like, how do you then? What? Yeah, what? Tell me about that.
So actually, I went into breathwork because my partner at the time was interested in an ice bath breathwork workshop in Bali with Alex. Shout out to Alex if you're listening. And we did 3 weeks, almost 200 hours of it. And I went in not thinking about the breathwork part. I was really interested in the ice bath, in the cold exposure in the nervous system. And the experiences that I had in those 3 weeks were so profound. And the breathing is such a simple practice that my mind was blown. It was more intense for me than sitting a plant medicine ceremony. I had 3-hour orgasms. I had the most insane rage scream of my life in which I released my phobia of birds. I gave birth to myself again, literally in this position on the floor, squeezing an imaginary ball out of my vagina, which was baby me, supposedly. And from then on, I felt like this lightness around my neck. It was so beyond what I thought was possible with just you, yourself, your body, your breath, that there was no going back.
Okay, what was happening in these breathwork sessions that led to you having all those things?
I think just complete openness, feeling of safety in the container, and not having those biases and preconceptions and judgments of what's possible and not, and allowing whatever to happen. So no skepticism at all. By that point, I was just completely open to receive. Um,
And what were the sessions looking like? Was it breath work, get into an ice bath, breath work? Like, was there a protocol you were doing every single day? At what point did the 3-hour orgasm happen?
oh, that's every day was different. We had different guest speakers and guest teachers, but we did rebirthing, we did holotropic breath work. Um, we learned lots of like ancient Tibetan breath work, Buteyko breath work.
The
Um,
Tibetan stuff where they like heat the ice around them and they're all
or when you breathe as though you can't um, move a piece of paper so gently and so slow. There's also lion's breath in yoga. We learned so many techniques. I can't even remember the exact
yeah,
structure. There was no protocol per se, but it was just 3 weeks of purging trauma.
right.
Just really opening up, cracking our bodies open. And I think when you do breath work every day, you get to a point where you can really go in and deep into some of those childhood things.
Okay, so this is the kind of shit that I would have heard before, and I'd be like, I don't get it. How is breathing like going to allow you to go deep inside, access childhood traumas, all these things, right?
Yeah.
So
I used to think that everyone on those videos were paid actors.
yeah, me too. I used to honestly think like, surely they're just faking it.
Yeah, me too. I thought the same thing.
So okay, I think context to listeners who haven't done a breathwork session, and this was me 1 week ago, by the way. So like,
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear this as well. So when we say we're doing a breathwork session and you're uncovering all this stuff and you're like, you're rebirthing, and is it just the breathing, the breathing protocol that you're doing that's allowing you to do this, or is having a facilitator there guide you with questions and
Mm.
exercises and activities that combined with the breath work
Yeah.
is that the thing that's allowing you to unlock this stuff, or are you just doing this shit by yourself?
So there's a few points to address there. The first one is, I guess, breath work on its own, the power of the breath. It is actually the founder of modern breath work is called Stan Grof. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He basically looked at he was studying patients on LSD. And this was before LSD was banned. And he noticed that everyone's breathing pattern changed. And after LSD was banned, he realized that by mimicking the breathing pattern, you can return to that same state as if you were on LSD, the same psychedelic effect. There are some studies that say that breath work releases DMT in the brain. So there's a very ancient supernatural element to breath work. And the second part about safety and grounding, completely right. So a lot of my breathwork workshops are focused on how to make people feel safe with me. That's why I share about my story. That's why we sit in a symbolic circle so that everyone feels included. You can see everyone around the room. There's a sense of belonging. That's why I tell everyone where the toilets are immediately so that they're oriented in the space. They know how to get their basic needs met. That's why I get everyone to scream and shake and make silly noises in the beginning so that they feel free to release anything that comes up. And also that's why I get everyone to speak their names into the room so that they can really feel that they're here. They're in the space, they're present, they've landed. Without feeling safe, our bodies, our nervous systems won't allow us to process a feeling or to feel it. It's mostly suppressed or compartmentalized. And most of the time, that's what our prefrontal cortex will do. It's not convenient to feel now. It's not safe. It's going to be tiring. These are all of the stories we have in place that stop us from having this big experience.
Okay. So what you're saying is that, okay, I think we need to define, like, okay, I know you just said that there's so many different types of breath work, but what we're saying here is that we're doing a specific protocol,
Mm,
right? We're following, and again, we're definitely going to talk about what we did, what you had us do in your session. Um, and then because of what the breath work is doing and the safety of the room and
mm,
the ability to be vulnerable and maybe dig in a little bit deeper than what you're used to, you're trying to strip down the constraints that we put on ourselves. Do these emotions and things, do they just appear?
mm.
Like, your eyes are closed, you're breathing, and then suddenly you just have these epiphanies?
I love this question, and let me try to answer your question in a more focused, structured way. So, what I believe, for me, what I believe happens in breath work is that you're bringing breath, prana, life force energy, healing energy, into the midline of the body, which is where we store all of our emotions. These are our energetic centers, our emotional centers or chakras. So, you have the root chakra, you have the solar plexus, you have the heart chakra, the throat, you have all of these points where energy can get stuck or get blocked or and all these sorts of things. Um, and what you do by bringing breath down through the midline is that you're basically opening up all of these channels so that you're moving energy through and you're connecting things that haven't been processed. So, as I explained in the session, whenever anything traumatic happens or overwhelming or stressful, it's associated with a breath hold. We take a bit of we kind of freeze up a bit and we don't process it all in the moment. We don't continue that breath. And so that's how the energy gets stuck in our body. Let's say someone screams at us or we feel completely powerless. We kind of hold that in our diaphragm and we move on with our day. Um, what we do by connecting the breath, so the inhale becoming the exhale and the exhale becoming the inhale, is we allow that experience to finish moving through because all emotions are energy moving through the body. And on average, it takes us 90 seconds to feel a full emotion if we don't have any stories attached to it. If we allow ourselves to physically feel it without it getting trapped with the mind, with shame or any other reason. So, what the breath then allows us to do is it allows that emotion to just move through, that energy to move through.
So what you're saying is that traumas and unprocessed feelings, like, literally get locked,
Mm,
stuck in
mm.
certain parts of the body.
Have you ever experienced, like witnessing a violent event or something like that, and it kind of stays with you, and
Yeah.
until you go home or you take a really deep exhale, you kind of holding that in your body,
Yeah.
or you've seen two people scream at each other at a restaurant or whatever, and you realize that you've just become a bit tense after that,
Yeah.
and we actually a bit of that, you can say it's energy or air, a bit of that is just we just haven't taken that big clearing breath.
Yeah.
We haven't returned to the baseline of our nervous system, so we stay on alert
Mm.
and it keeps us hyper aroused.
So it's almost like we need to breathe out the tension.
Yeah, on a spiritual level, the breath represents taking life in and letting it go. So if we can breathe with ease and if we can exhale with ease, it means we're taking in new life and we're exhaling old life.
Are you noticing that I'm breathing much deeper right now? I also realized that when you're telling that story, I think I started holding my breath because I was waiting for the punchline.
Yeah.
Okay, so got it. I think, is this what you refer to when people say, tension and trauma gets locked in the body?
Mm,
Is that what we're referring to here?
yeah. So trauma gets stored in so many ways. Um, Overall, I think there's a subconscious belief that might be formed that keeps it in place, like a story that's, we learn from an event that I'm not lovable or I'm broken or I'm this, and it keeps that experience repeating in our nervous system.
Mm.
Um, but overall, it's a traumatic event is basically, it's not the event itself, it's how our nervous system chose to process it.
Yes.
And our nervous system decides there is a threat, there is a danger, I need to stay on guard in case it happens again. So I can protect myself from that experience. And so, unlike, I'm sure you know this analogy of, the deer that gets hunted by the lion and it needs to go shake it off. We get that distress stored in our body, and it's never discharged unless you have a good shaking practice, like an Osho meditation or something like that. So um, that energy has nowhere to go. And so our window of tolerance might shrink. We might enter a freeze or a flight or a shutdown or a fight response.
Do you, sorry to cut you off, Andrew, but do you think this is even more prevalent in this day and age, given that we are just not very good at giving ourselves downtime and space to be quiet and breathe? Like,
Yeah.
we are just moving so constantly from one thing to the next
Yeah.
that the body, we don't have, because we don't give ourselves even 5 minutes sometimes to sit and be still and do nothing.
In our culture, self care is a luxury.
Yeah.
Actually, if you don't choose a time to unwind and relax, your body will choose for you. We're not designed to be in big cities with all this noise and stimulation and bright lights, so disconnected from nature. Now we need to do so much biohacking supplementation because we don't have the nutrition in the soil. We aren't barefoot in the grass. And all of these stressors and this tension, we're not finding outlets to properly release.
And so the human in this day and age in 2024 is probably carrying a lot more tension and trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, not even because
Stress.
I think people can understand the word stress because we're just busy and we have hard jobs, working days are getting longer, sleep is getting less.
Yeah.
But then I think that the trauma and the stored trauma is like
Mm.
another dimension to it.
Yeah, I think trauma is also quite a big word because there's big traumas and little traumas. Anything that keeps your nervous system slightly on edge is a tension that is showing up in your nervous system as
Yeah.
a trauma
I always think
in
of
a
it as
way.
like a trigger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always remember the quote, trust the triggers to teach. And when the trigger is there, there is something.
Mm.
You can call it a trauma. It can be something, but there's something
Go
when
look at
you
it.
see that one thing, or
Yeah.
that you hear that noise, or you smell that smell, or whatever it is that triggers you, that actually excites me. Like when I find the trigger, I'm like, okay, this is fun. Like I'm looking forward to like digging into this
That's a growth
and
mindset.
figuring out what this thing is. And then, when you get knowing that I'm going to at some point have a better understanding of this thing, I'm going to develop tools so that it doesn't. I always say to my wife, she's like, why do you do all this investigation? Why do you get so excited about this stuff? I'm like, can you just imagine living a life with no triggers? I was like, how nice would that be? How nice would it be just to go about your day every single day and just be so free and
Yeah.
at ease that nothing's triggering you? I'm like, that's where I
Yeah.
want to get to.
I think that's why I resonate with you so much for feel a connection. It's that commitment to our own growth. It's like if we can be freer, why are we not all
Why
doing
wouldn't you?
this? Yeah.
Because I've lived a life where I felt like every second was triggering me in some way, shape, or form. And I experienced all the negative things that came with that, like physical and mental. Like the mental was like lethargy, anxiety, feelings of depression, wearing different masks every day, trying to be liked. And then the physical was like injuries,
Mm.
illnesses, like infections, weird, all this weird shit used to happen to my body.
Yeah.
And I would be like, why me? Like, I'm working out 5 days a week. I play
I'm
sports.
doing all the right things.
I'm eating well. How am I the guy getting sick all the time? How am I getting all these injuries? How am I end up in hospital every year with something major? And then now I look back at all of it and I'm like, okay, I just honestly think it's just my body breaking was the final straw of a lot of like mental stress and trauma and unaddressed triggers.
Yeah.
That my body just got to a breaking point. It happened to be the rugby tackle that snapped me, or like whatever it was, the most innocuous thing.
Yeah.
And so now that was a piecing. Injuries was a big piecing tool for me.
Yeah. But your body was screaming out for your attention to
Yeah,
look at all the
it was
things.
whispering and I wasn't listening, and I waited for it to scream. Yeah,
Yeah.
the signs were there, but it was just under the rug,
We
sweep
all
under the
wait
rug.
for that impact.
Yeah.
We have to.
And now I'm just like, I don't want to wait for the scream anymore. So when I catch a whisper, I'm gonna listen to it and
Yeah.
then try and work out what it's trying to tell me, because when you get to the scream, like that's not a nice place to be. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever that, it can manifest itself in so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
But I just don't want to have that in my life.
And
Why would
like
I?
you said, it screams once and you that's enough to learn it. And
Yeah.
I'm so excited by people like you who are also super excited about their triggers. And it's just what is more fulfilling than your own personal evolution?
Yeah.
That it's so fulfilling,
Yeah.
like to be the product.
Love it. Okay. I'd like to talk about our session, if you don't mind. Okay. So the way I'd like to start this is I would like you to talk me through what we did that day. So I know you talked about like the safe space at the beginning, the introducing to the room. Now I can see all that why you did that. I figured that's why we were doing it. Um, like the silly noises was like basically, guys, be yourselves, like let it out. There's no judgment in here. I appreciate that. I definitely still wasn't ready to like scream and make noises. I don't think. I think I still had a bit of a guard up for sure. I think also because there was a lot of females in that room and not that many dudes.
It's fascinating that you say that because my partner runs men's circles, and
Mm.
in those breathworks, men release so much more.
Yeah, I would envision if I was with 30 guys, I would be even more open to.
Yeah. You know what it also is? I've realized that there is an evolutionary biological thing where women are scared of big anger release from a man, from any growling. And I think that's just such a primal feeling of unsafety from women that I think men are also afraid of their own anger in that way.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's true. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So take us through where the breath work session started and why. Like, why
Mm.
did you do that thing? What were you trying to achieve?
So, from when we started breathing, I got everyone to lie down. And the most important thing here is to really let go of any thoughts that are taking you out of the moment, being really fully present and training that mind body connection. So, I really grounded everybody and brought them into their bodies and really into that feeling of heaviness, into being supported by the earth. And when we feel grounded, we can integrate our experience a lot better. Um, and then I guess from there, I slowly eased us into deep exhales, the physiological sigh, so that we could release some tension. You could see people start to yawn as well. And then the music got slightly faster, and we moved into breathing through the mouth, which is better for emotional cathartic release. And you want me to guide you through the rounds, or?
Yeah, because and I want to pause you there for a second. I wanted to firstly say that the music I think is really important.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I really feel that like the music set the tone and brought like intensity and focus to it.
yeah.
Actually, we were chatting after the session. I was like, that playlist was sick. Like I could actually listen to that playlist.
Fun.
Like I was getting fired. Well, I won't share like how I felt yet because I'd like to hear more about the process. But I will also say the music was really important. I want to talk
Yeah.
about mouth breathing for a second.
Mhm. Sorry, can I add on that?
Yeah,
That's completely true, and I think we don't even realize, like, sound healing, the impact on our cells, that physical frequency of sound, it's you can have ancient sacred music that brings back memories from old lifetimes.
that's what I felt. I felt like I was in a tribe
Yeah.
and I was like ready for war.
I love that. And there's also psychedelic music that makes you feel like you're tripping, and
Yeah,
all these memories can be linked to music.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love that part. Okay, so I want to talk about mouth breathing
Yes.
because I know you said at the start you gave us a rundown on how you want us to breathe,
Mhm.
and you had said breathe through the mouth because, and I can't remember why, what the because was. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I went deep down a nasal breathing
Mm.
route,
Mm.
right? So, like, read about the oxygen
Yeah,
advantage,
from Patrick
did Wim
McEwen.
Hof,
Yeah.
Breath by James Nestor,
Mhm.
like, went all through all these protocols and like have generally become a a nasal breather.
Me too.
That's
I mouth tape
almost
at night to sleep as
yeah, and
well.
I did a 3 month experiment of mouth taping as well,
Mm,
but have become almost scared
I agree.
of
It's
mouth
the feeling.
breathing
Yeah.
because of all the things I think are bad that's going to happen with it.
Mhm.
And generally how much worse I feel when I mouth
Mhm.
breathe. Like everything just feels worse.
Yeah.
So why do we mouth breathe?
So I love that you bring this up. So the mouth breathing is terrible for functional breathing. You should never mouth breathe in day-to-day life. Nasal breathing is much better. It cleans your, sinus, all of the science behind it. Mouth breathing, if you look at any artistic or expression or in sort of like in method acting classes, for example, you always be asked to sigh through the mouth. You always be asked to open the mouth, open the throat, this center of expression. Now, scientifically, it's about getting the air out, the carbon dioxide out. And by doing that, you stimulate the Bohr effect. So less oxygen is released in your blood. So from a scientific perspective, it's just mouth breathing allows you to get more oxygen out, more oxygen in. So it allows you to sort of get to a more intense place than nasal breathing would. And from a sort of throat chakra release perspective, whenever we feel emotional, even when we're crying, you'll start hyperventilating through the mouth. Mouth breathing is associated with the release of emotions. It's that sense of opening up for expression.
So as a tool, right, if we feel like we've had a very heavy emotional day and we want to try and like let it out, would you recommend that's the time to do mouth breathing?
In a confined breathwork session,
Yeah, with
yes.
intention. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
consciously.
Don't
I
just
wouldn't,
start mouth breathing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing is everything done with consciousness as a conscious choice is not harmful, right? So you can say mouth breathing isn't good for you for X, Y, and Z, but everything done consciously
Yeah.
then becomes good for you.
Yeah. And I think with the intention of knowing why you would do it. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so we're mouth breathing the whole time. And
Mhm.
obviously I was like, holy shit, we're gonna mouth breathe for 75 minutes. And my mouth's gonna be really dry and I don't have a bottle of water. That's the first thing I thought of. But I was like, nope, just gonna go with it anyway because I'm all in. So continue. So so we now start like the first set, I guess. I
Mhm.
just always think of sets because of training. But if we're doing the first set of about, I think it was about 5 minutes.
Yep.
I think because you said that's how long the song was.
Yep.
And we're all lying, I think context, we're all lying on our backs, eyes are closed, looking up at the sky. So I have
Mhm.
no idea what the people around me are doing. I didn't open them once. Okay, so now we start the first protocol. What are we doing?
So you want me to talk through the way you breathe or
Yeah,
why?
what did you have us do? So basically it was like you talked about connecting breaths.
Mhm.
It's all done through the mouth.
So it's the conscious connected breath. It's conscious because most of our breath, I think it's 33,000 a day, it's unconscious. So it's conscious because we're aware of it, and it's connected because the inhale and the exhale become one circle.
There's
So
never
there's no
pausing
pause.
and
Yeah.
breath holds.
No gap at the top, no gap at the bottom. We're breathing deep into our lower belly, into our chest, and also into our third eye in one big wave of energy. So we can feel the breath moving through our whole body. And I chose the song specifically for 5 minutes, and I designed it so that there were 4 rounds. This is inspired by my teacher, Alex and Vali. And this is great for beginners because you do it for the first time in a sort of contained, safe way. And the next time you think, oh, that's what I can expect. I can go a little
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah.
In between the rounds, I put a breath hold, and breath holds, you must know, are great for you for lung capacity, for your oxygen efficiency, bolt score. And then I add a little shoot, which is kind of like Kumbakan yoga, like a little root lock. It's a breath hold where you bring all of your awareness into your third eye, where you can activate the pineal gland. And you can believe this or you cannot. But basically, what you do is during that breath hold, by focusing all of your energy there, you almost are moving your own energy to this energy center. And you can think of it as purifying in some way or opening. But again, not everyone can access that feeling.
Okay, so let me
Depending on where
describe
you
it
are.
in my words.
Yeah.
So we basically do 5 minutes of like this continual. Can you just give an example of what this actually sounds like? Because I want people to be able to try this at home.
The breath?
Just the breath. Yeah, just like the ins and outs are connected. Yeah, so that's the kind of cadence we're holding, right? And it's in tune with the music. And can I just say, there's like something that is, I think, just tribal is the way I can put it. When you're in a room with 30 people and everyone is breathing at the same time,
In sync.
it's pretty crazy. Like I think that was where I was like, I feel like I'm ready to go to war.
You can really feel the energy of the
Yeah, it was
group.
insane. Have you watched I Am Legend
Yes.
with Will
I
Smith?
had to watch it twice because when the dog came the first time, I had to leave the cinema.
You know when Will Smith he goes like he rounds this corner and he looks into this dark room and there's a bunch of the zombies all in a circle and they're doing this. Do you know the scene I'm talking about? Fucking terrifying.
I think so.
It's like that scene has
That's
like
where it brought
haunted
you.
me. That's exactly what I thought of the whole time. But I felt like I'm the zombie and I'm about to like take over the world.
I love that. I love that. That was your
That was
experience.
it. Literally, it took me right back to that exact scene when those zombies are like all breathing in a circle. Anyway, So that was really cool. Like I really felt connected with the
Yeah.
30 people. I didn't know really anyone in that room, to be
Yeah.
honest, other than, obviously my brother, my wife, and Kieran. That was it.
Mhm.
So we're doing these power breaths, continuous work. I call them power breaths because that's what I was doing with Wim Hof when I
Yeah.
was doing his 3-month protocols.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you basically have us take one big exhale,
Mhm.
and we take one big inhale, and we
Mhm.
hold. No, inhale, then exhale,
Mhm.
then hold.
Hold at the bottom
How
of
long are
the
we holding
exhale.
for?
I
Because I
actually
felt like I
increased them
was.
each round. It was 1 minute, a minute and a half, and then it was 2
It
minutes.
was a 2-minute hold.
Some people love it, but in when you're in that
It was
sort of
easy.
state, you don't realize it, do you? Because you're kind of in a meditative, non-ordinary state already.
Yeah,
You lose track of time. You're just in the void, in samadhi.
because I felt like I was like in my head. I'm like, I feel like this breath hold is going a long time, but I feel like I've got another 30 seconds in me, which is cool. Okay, and then we do this. What's it called? The create as much tension in your body that you were just talking about.
Kind of like the shoot from inspired by Joe Dispenza or like a
Okay,
Kumbhaka.
the
Yeah.
shoot. Now this is probably what I see in breathwork videos that I'm like, that looks weird. I'm just gonna be
And
honest,
there you
right?
were doing it.
Yeah. So the why it's weird, you demo fair play to you as well. Like you just got into the middle. We hadn't done anything. We're just a total bunch of strangers, just met you, and you just get into the middle and you're like, this is what a shoot looks like. And you just commit.
What were you thinking when I was doing it?
I was just thinking fair play. I was thinking fair play to you, Angela, for just, you fully committed to this thing. And I mean, like, I can only describe it as like, it looks like a really intense orgasm. And you're doing it in front of 30 people that you've never met before. It's dead silent.
Yeah.
We haven't really broken down the barriers yet to be super comfortable. You're just doing it. And I was like, as soon as I saw you do that, I was like, I'm down to do that.
Gotta set the tone.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
You're like, it just made me feel like, okay, cool. This is like anything goes here. And this is good. I
Yeah.
like that. If
Yeah.
you'd have been a bit timid and been like holding back, I would have been like, okay, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I feel you.
So basically, yeah, we basically do this thing, and you were talking about the third eye. I can't connect with
By the
that.
way, I also have those thoughts before I go on there. I'm like, I better commit to this. I
Well,
have
you
to
have to.
commit to it.
Good. Well, now you've heard from an attendee, like the more you commit, the better.
Yeah.
That made me feel safer.
Yeah. This is
And
what we learn
then,
in stand-up comedy as well.
oh yeah,
If you're gonna go on, you fully
you
commit.
got to commit. Yeah. If people know that you're not there, like yeah, you've lost them. Yeah. And then basically, we all simulate a really intense orgasm
Hmm.
for a second, and then we let it out. But
Did you enjoy that?
the letting out felt incredible. Like the letting out and just like letting my body be limp
Yeah.
felt amazing.
'Cause squeezing all of your muscles, you kind of activate your sympathetic
Yeah.
nervous system to the max in a way.
And then you go
can-
as parasympathetic as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually found that to be a very relaxing process. And I
Yeah.
felt like, yeah, kind of like the sigh breath, like just the release that you feel
Yeah.
in that breath
Yeah.
can just really ground you and just, yeah, take you to a whole nother level of relaxation. So,
Yeah.
okay, so that's a process.
Uh-huh. So we do 4 rounds, and then after that, the most important part is probably allowing space, which is
No,
where
we're
I
not
just
getting there.
we're not getting there
You
yet.
hold tight, hold tight. Why are we doing that?
Guide us
Why
back
are we
in.
doing this 5 minutes of like connected breathing? What are you trying to achieve?
So there are different effects. The conscious connected breath is very activating. It's very intense, but the breath holds are a lot more calming. So when you're mixing these together, you have a combination of something energizing and something meditative. So it isn't overly activating, because breathing at that pace for too long can be a bit too activating for some people. Um, so it just creates more balance.
And what are people experiencing when they do it? Because, okay, at this point in time, after already one round,
Hmm.
I can hear people crying.
Yeah.
So I can hear like sobs, I can hear like nose blowing,
Hmm.
all sorts of triggering emotions clearly. I'm feeling like lightheaded,
Mm.
like a little bit, yeah, just vision is getting like I'm looking through a kaleidoscope a little bit, which
Hmm.
is, I've experienced a lot of times with breath work and in life in general. So that wasn't scary or anything, but I just felt every time I did one of these cycles, I got more and more present with where, being there. I got less, I broke down, I let go of like, okay, what noise am I making right now? I feel a bit, am I feeling judged? You know what I mean? I really just surrendered. By round 2, I was like totally, I don't know, like just going with the flow and not attaching any thought or fear of judgment to what I was doing.
Mm.
And obviously I'm hearing people crying and being emotional and letting things out. And you're obviously facilitating, you're talking the whole time, right? Which
Mhm.
is very comforting, and you're letting the people know who are crying, like, good, like, keep, like, stick with it, let it out type thing. But I'm thinking in my head, I don't feel remotely emotional.
Mm.
What I actually felt was like very powerful. Maybe that was a thing that I felt. Because I was so deeply present, I felt like I could really connect with my feelings. And my feelings were, I feel immensely grateful for my life. I love where I'm going with it. I
Mm.
feel unstoppable right now.
That's
Like, I feel
beautiful.
like I'm on a really good trajectory to where I'm going.
Yeah.
And like, I was actually like fired up.
Wow.
You know, like I said, like I felt like I wanted to go, I was
The
ready to go to
war.
battle.
Yeah.
I genuinely felt like I could have just got up at that point in time and been like, I'm going to take over the world.
That's beautiful because I think you really connect with whatever is happening for you underneath. That sense of, I guess, masculine energy, that also that being aware of the crying around you, that it's almost like a masculine presence, that anchoring, that space holding. There are often times in breathworks where certain people will feel just like space holders for everyone around them. That's one of the experiences that people have.
Yeah. Okay. So we go through 4 rounds of
I'm so
this.
curious about your experience.
Yeah. So we go through 4 rounds of this. And then, so you said what? You said there has to be space.
Yes. So I think the breath work is really just the warm up in a way. What is really important is that at the end, people have a lot of space for them to sit with that experience, to sit with what's coming up, to observe and to witness and to feel and to process that experience. So I give quite a few songs there, and then I do an inner child meditation. I actually do a different thing every time at the end, depending on what I feel the group needs. That time on Sunday, I did one where your inner child brings you to your childhood home, which I actually got at Lee Strasberg from acting school. Um, is this a good time to ask you about your
Yeah,
experience?
absolutely.
And you mentioned that you had a very powerful experience from that part.
Yeah. So so the funny thing is, I thought that when we finished the last set of the power breaths, I thought we were done.
Mm.
I was like, and then I think you said we have 5 more songs, and I was like, what are we gonna do? I was like, I thought the breathwork session's finished.
I'm
Like,
ready to leave.
yeah, I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm feeling on top of the world. I'm like fired up. This is like the confirmation that I needed in life. Like,
Hoo ha, let's go to
yeah,
battle.
exactly. And then you said, I think we had just a moment to chill, and then you said something about seeing you, like you're seeing your younger you, and he or she is putting his hand out. So for me, it's he's putting his hand out to you, and you're feeling his hand in your hand. What is he trying to tell you? Something along those lines. Is that right?
Mhm.
And okay, so it took me like right back. It was so vivid, which is crazy. Like the vision I had of literally seeing me, and I was wearing my school uniform, and I'm about 9 years old. I'm at my old school, Kellett School,
Wow.
in the playground. I can see the red brick wall, and I am me. I am adult Ed, 36-year-old Ed, as I am now. And I'm looking down at 9-year-old me, and he's literally 9-year-old me is putting his hand up to put in my hand. This is really crazy, right? So,
Wow.
and I can see like I can see my hand in my hand.
And do these meditations and visualizations
No,
usually have this effect?
absolutely not.
So it was
Like,
because the breath opened you up.
yeah, it has to be. But it was like so vivid. And he took me down the playground, and he's walking me to the end of the playground in Kellett School. There's like a garden, and there's like a climbing frame and a playground. And 9-year-old me just wanted to show me all the cool things he could do. But there was a really sad part to it, because I could also feel and see that 9-year-old me was really felt sad and unloved. And I think so. I'm going to put some context to this now, because mum and dad listen to this podcast. Like, they are avid listeners, and they listen to it all the time. And I definitely don't want mum and dad to think that I was not a loved child, or I didn't have a great childhood, because I had an incredible childhood. But I have talked about, with my parents, we've spoken openly about this, about love languages, right? And my parents they've always expressed their love through like being there, never missed a sports game, would always be there at the biggest events of my life. And they're gift givers. Like Christmas time would spoil us rotten. Birthday time would spoil us rotten. Like that was their love language. But we're not a family that says I love you,
Mm.
right? So seeing 9-year-old me, what I saw in 9-year-old me was that I just want to show you all this cool stuff that I can do, but please don't judge me. Please don't tell me that, I'm not good enough
Mm.
or that you're not impressed. I just want to show you that I can do cool stuff and just be with me.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I in your workshop, I just felt this really powerful wave of emotions, and I started getting tingling all the way up my arms, and I started crying. I could just feel tears like welling up my eyes and coming out. And then so I'm looking at 9-year-old me, and he's like a very sweet boy that just wants to show me the cool things that he can do and wants me to be proud of him.
What were those cool things out of curiosity?
So, well, the next part where you took us then is I think you took us to what you said you're at your house now,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just opened the door and he's trying to show you in. What is he showing you? So that took me back to my immediately, and again, it's super vivid. I'm in Repulse Bay where we used to live, and we had a staircase up to the front door. And like, I've walked up the staircase, the door's already open, and he's looking back at me being like, I want to show you to like my Lego kit is all I can think of, right? I
Mm.
want to show you that I can do this cool Lego, and I've got all these cool things and I just want to show you. I'm really proud, Ed, but like come and have a look at them.
Mm.
And again, it was like, this sounds very sweet, but it was actually sad
Yeah.
because I think I really connected with the fact that young me was just craving love
Yeah.
and wanted to be loved, and he just felt like he wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think going back to my parents, they showered me with love. It was just in a language that I didn't understand as a kid.
Yeah.
And the connecting point that happened almost instantly for me was like, because in my teens and my 20s, I got very lost as to who I was, right? So I started to be the jock, the popular kid, um, the rebel.
Yeah.
Every day was about wearing a different mask based on who I was speaking to. And I can piece it together. I know why now. Like seeing young me was because young me felt that me being me was not good enough. And therefore, if me being me doesn't get the love that I want, maybe I got to be someone else. And I honestly, and I've always said this, right? I've always talked about my younger years and the mask that I wore. And, I've eventually come full circle back to who I think I've always authentically been,
Yeah.
but it took me a really long time to get there. I'm aware of that, but I've never been aware of the emotions and the feelings
Yeah.
that I experienced as a little child that led me to doing all those things. And yeah, I just had so much emotion I had to get out because I felt sad for me. I felt sad for the little boy. That, I think you eventually told us to like roll into a fetal position on our side. I was ready to lie there for like 30 minutes and
Yeah.
just process all of it. I wasn't ready to like move on because I was like, wow, this is really powerful. But the takeaway from this as well was that, okay, how do I want to love the people around me? That was it, right? I need to make sure that I don't make someone feel the way that little me is feeling right now. So I need to love wholeheartedly, openly. I need to express love the way that I feel it and not hold back. Because I definitely have felt that because of the circumstances of me as a kid and being so confused around this idea of love,
Mm.
right? Because my parents show it to me in one way, I see other parents show it another way, I see the movies show it another way. What is love?
Yeah.
How do I express it? And so in relationships, I've always held back. I've been like the anxious avoidant my whole life,
Mm.
right? I keep everyone at arm's length. I have these like desires to want to tell someone how much I love them,
Yeah.
but I hold myself back. And I'm like, don't do it. And it's not because I'm afraid that they're not going to accept it. I know they are. It's a confusion around how to deliver it and how to say it, you know? And I'd never been able to piece that together until that moment in your workshop. And
Wow.
this is like,
That's
this all
profound.
happened within 5 minutes.
Wow.
Like all that processing. It actually, no, all the processing didn't happen that quickly. I really, we left that workshop and I was like, not an emotional guy normally. I can rationalize things pretty quickly. I like to sit with emotions, but then I'm like, okay,
What are we gonna do about
what are
it?
we gonna do about it? Yeah. But I was like, wow, I need to sit with this. Like, this is really heavy. Like, I feel like I just unlocked something massive. And I think, you know, I was with Aunt Adele and Cami, my wife, and they had an amazing experience, but nothing like I couldn't even put into words what I just experienced. So we're standing there waiting for a taxi, and I'm like, holy shit, like this could change my life.
Yeah.
This could literally change my life forever in the way that, number one, it's liberating because I understand now. I understand why I chose those actions involuntarily, like subconsciously, as
Yeah.
a young kid, as a teenager, at university, post. I can understand that now. That's liberating. That feels really good because I don't feel crazy anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's number one. And then number two, gave me clarity on how I want to love the people around me and to make sure I don't make people feel like 9-year-old Ed who just wanted to be loved and show the world all the cool things he could do, but didn't do it because he felt like it wouldn't be good enough.
Fuck, man, I'm tearing up. I'm so moved by this. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That is so profound and beautiful as well. Because I think it's so easy for us to villainize. Oh, I'm attention seeking. I'm seeking validation, and it's so easy for us to look at these parts of us with and feel bad about them. And when you actually unlock the why behind it, the self love of being able to realize it's a child who needed a certain type of validation to feel important in what they were interested in or what they found joy in or what they're good at, then suddenly your whole system softens. That inner compassion of being able to, I think that's the power of inner child work. It's like whenever we feel like there's some joy or purpose missing, it's often because our connection to our inner child isn't there. It's like we don't feel fully alive because we're not co-creating our life with our inner child. We're creating a life now as an adult, but we've left a part of us behind.
Yeah. And it's not like you can just stick him in a box
Yeah.
because, you know, that box is going to open and resurface in the times where you least expect it. Yeah, I think I had done a lot of like rational thinking about what might have happened from when
Mm.
I was a kid and like love languages, and I've spoken about that,
You've
you know, on the
analyzed it.
pod. Yeah. But but analyzing it rationally is totally different from feeling
Mm.
what I felt. And I think that was a missing part for me. It was like now I feel it, and then that's totally different. Now that's like,
Embodied.
yeah, it's like this is confirmation that the rational thoughts aren't just thoughts. Like that's 100% what happened.
Yeah.
And like, you know, and that feeling was just so in me still. It was crazy because, you know, when in going back to your workshop and hearing people crying, I think I said to you after, I was like listening to it and I was like, I've just got it all figured out. Like these poor people, like they haven't been on the journey that I've been on. Right. And
Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
doing this for years. And
yeah.
so no wonder I feel powerful and like ready to take over the world. And these guys are all crying, like they just got to do the work.
I
And
love
then literally 5 seconds later, I'm like got tears
that.
pouring down my face.
Yeah,
And I'm like, holy shit, like
yeah.
this was, I may have never connected with this. And it could have just been with me for ages. And I felt the rest of my day was interesting because I had a really bad headache.
Yeah.
I don't really get headaches ever. But I wouldn't say a bad headache, but I had a mild headache for the rest of the day. I felt like I hadn't eaten since 7 a.m. and I normally, you know, eat 3 pretty big meals in a day. And it's now 5 p.m. and I'm like not remotely hungry. And I'm
Wow.
literally like, I have to eat because if I don't eat, like I'm gonna be finishing my day at a quarter of the calories I normally eat. Tomorrow is gonna be a disaster.
Yeah.
But I just had to sit with it. I sat for, you know, with my wife and just talked about it for like 2 hours, I was just getting everything out and all the things that I was like, this all makes so much sense now. But I still felt it was like so catch 22 because I felt so sad for little me and seeing him there. But I also felt so good and like liberated and
All at
excited for
once.
the future at the same time. It was like, yeah, just very strange feelings and emotions.
And since then, in the last 3 days, have you noticed any other shifts or in energy or anything subtle or
I slept
big?
really badly that night.
Mm.
So I was a bit tired the next day for sure. I had like cold sweats. And I know I haven't had, it's not like I've been having these. I sweated a lot that night. I was like going back and forth between the end of my bed to the top of my bed, trying to find a dry patch all night.
Mm.
Um, yeah, then yeah, I woke up being like, wow, okay, I don't know what that is or why that happened, but it's got to be linked to, what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, for sure, I think things that I have already taken away. It's interesting because I'm a very expressive person for love and gratitude with people in my life in general, but the person I find it hardest with is my wife, like and my family, like the
The
closest
people
I
you love the
the
most.
people I love the most and the closest to me.
Yeah.
That's where I find it most challenging. Um, and I think, again, going back to inner child me, young Ed, I think I can understand that now. Whereas I got no problem telling Al what a great guy he is and I love him, and
Yeah.
my friends and randoms that I just meet and hang out with for a day. That's not uncomfortable for me at all. But really saying it to people closest to me is the hardest.
Yeah. And I think you're so right about how you can, it's so easy to, from a mind perspective, analyze it, why that might be and not actually make any change, as opposed to actually feeling it
Yes.
and then having that integrated.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like, so
Thank
we
you
when we
so much for sharing that with
well,
me, Ed.
absolutely. Thank you for like doing that and
So emotional.
facilitating that because as I said, like that's going to be something now that's going to change the course of my life forever. Like that one moment lying in that room with you is going to be sketched into my brain for the rest of time.
Wow.
And it was interesting because when we finished, you asked for sharing, right? So we sat in a circle, and I remember just sitting there being like, "Oh my god, that was so insane." And didn't even have the words yet to try and share. And I honestly thought if I opened my mouth, I would have just started crying. Like that's what, and I haven't cried. Not this isn't a macho manly thing, but I really haven't cried. I couldn't tell you the last time I cried. It's been years, and
Really?
I felt like if I shared what I had just experienced, I would have just not even been able to get my words out of my mouth.
Wow, you were in a very tender place.
Yeah, massively. Um, yeah, and I was just remember just looking around, and I was hearing the guys them share their experiences, and I was like, that was totally me. What they said was totally me before
For
you
the
brought
last
up the inner child, right? The young me. Like, oh, it's just physical sensations. I felt really cool, really present, like body feels good. And I'm just like, I went to a whole nother dimension, way beyond that. Yeah. What are your
Wow.
thoughts?
I'm just taking in your story, man. I've just completely forgotten who I am, what my name is, that I'm Asian, what wow. That's Ed. I'm so touched by that. I can really also relate to this feeling of like an unexpected healing thing, right? Because a lot of the times our spiritual ego or this idea of like having things figured out, and then we just come back to a very fundamental thing that almost feels like it's been resolved, but it gets brought up again in a deeper layer,
Mm,
in a deeper way. And you're like, ah, more things to do. And you get really
yeah.
excited.
And I'm sure like there's going to be, I know the work week has been really busy. And so I haven't given it the time that I want
Mm,
to really sit with it a bit more
yeah.
and start to connect the dots more because I
Yeah.
know there's more dot connecting that needs to happen. And I'm excited. I think
Yeah.
what you said, like share one word that you're feeling, and I think my one was like I'm ready to explore
Mm,
because I just like opened Pandora's box that I
mm.
was like I got to throw my head in here now and figure out what this actually all means.
It always feels quite endless. I feel the same with you. I've been doing a lot of more inner child things lately, but even when you gave me that compliment of like, thank you for holding the space, a part of me still keeps a wall there. A part of me can't receive it fully. And, I look at my past childhood pictures a lot, and that really helps me bring up a memory or create a new story or relationship. But even then, it's like almost every photo has a new dimension to it. It's almost like such an endless journey of
So interesting. So yeah, you actually use photos to like what just bring you back to the feelings and the thoughts and the things that were happening.
because I experienced my childhood in quite a traumatic way. I don't actually have much memory of my
Me too. I
childhood.
was
I
just
was
gonna say,
frozen.
I see photos and I'm like, that's a fully developed child
Yeah.
that has a pretty big brain, and I don't remember that at all.
And I feel like I sometimes make up memories around the photo. I'm not sure if it's real or
So
not.
I just
Do
feel
you say
like I'm
that?
just blank. Like really, like so much of my childhood stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
why do I not remember that?
Yeah, me too. So
Do you think there's something to that though?
mine was definitely, I think, related to having CPTSD, this label of
Mm,
CPTSD, but I had my mom physically punished me quite a lot. So I was very much in fight or flight. And I think until I was in my 20s, when I had that um, dark night of the soul, I think my entire nervous system was just on that state of hyper arousal alert. So I think that's why I don't have good memories. I also dissociated a bit from, so I would speak about my problems like they're here. Oh, this is what I think happened in my childhood. But like you said, I wasn't feeling it while I was
mm,
saying it. I could see what it was, but it didn't feel like mine.
yeah. Yeah, I honestly think I perpetually lived in a state of fight or flight.
Yeah.
Um, and I honestly think that's why I had so many injuries.
Yeah.
I went through from it 17 till 26, like a major surgical operation on my shoulders and my knees
Mm,
year after year.
yeah.
And I honestly think it was just years of just tension.
Yeah.
And my body was just really unresilient. My basically my stress jar was just like at the brim
Yeah.
at all time. And it was just like managing to scrape through. And then suddenly it was like, now
I see you as very heart open and heart led. And
you
now that
said that. What do you mean by that? I'd
you
like to
just,
ask.
I can see vulnerability in eyes, like this sort of, this willingness or eagerness or ability to go into things that really touch you. But now that you've mentioned this, not crying for a few years, I wanted to know, do you feel blocked or
Yeah.
emotionally numb?
I I I think around crying, I have this like I have because I always fought it. As a kid, you'd feel the apple in the throat, and I would fight to not let that apple come any higher.
Mm,
Because for me and our family, which is, we are hard working grafters. Like that's the only way I could say it, right? We're a family of people who we've evolved now, I think, as a whole family, to become a lot more emotional and in touch with our feelings. But growing up, that wasn't a Haynes trait. Like we are hardworking, we don't quit, we never say no. Like, I think I missed not even a day of school in from primary to secondary school. I'd be like shitting my pants or, you know, my jumper covered in snot, and it was like, you're going to school. And I get there and it's the nurse be like, you're going home. I'm like, right, but that's just like the way that we were. It was like you just don't back down from stuff.
yeah.
And so because of that, there is a toughness mentality.
Which brings you so far in what you guys do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like there's great things. There's so many amazing things
Wow.
that have come from being tough and like having grit. And like I wouldn't have built this business if I didn't have that. But obviously there's two sides to every coin. And the other side to the coin was that, I bottled everything up.
Yeah.
Emotions were for pussies,
Hmm.
right? And it's, I played rugby, and it's like talking about hard things or that you're struggling is like that is an opening for bullying,
Yeah.
right? And you are exiled from the team if you're gonna express that something's hard and you can't handle it. And so there are so many times in life that even it happens now, and I try and let go of it, but I feel this overwhelming surge of emotion, and I want to like cry,
Yeah.
and like my body just fights it. It's like gets to here, I can feel it in my throat. It's like this apple's about to come out, and I
Yeah.
just subconsciously, more so subconsciously than consciously now, my body just doesn't want to let it out. It's like, and the last time I cried was going through a really challenging time with my wife, and it was this build up of like a lot of challenge for about a year. And I got to this point, it was during a pandemic as well, so add a lot of like business and professional life stress to my plate. And I had this urge, I'm like, I'm just gonna cry right now. I didn't know how to cry.
Mm.
It felt so foreign to me because by this point in time, this is 4 or 5 years ago. Probably hadn't cried in over 20 years. Like I hadn't felt a tear come out my eye.
That was me. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I actually tried to cry and I couldn't. Like I was like trying to, it's like when you're dry heaving, you're trying to like, you know what I mean? When you're trying to do a tactical chunder is what we would call
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You put your fingers down your throat to try and get something out
yeah.
and like your body's trying to do it, but
Like
it's
a
not getting
cat
it.
trying to take a shit, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it was like trying to cry. It was so strange. But eventually, like I had to sit myself in a hot shower. Eventually, I was able just like to let it all out. And it was like 20 years of like held, bottled up, really like aggressive and like not aggressive, but sadness
Yeah.
let out all in one go. And then I couldn't stop crying for like 30 minutes.
Wow.
And then since then, it's even like
But
in
it
a
was
mood,
only 30 minutes.
probably about 30 minutes, yeah.
Wow.
But intense crying.
I think I cried straight for 2 years, 2020, 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, and then there's still times that I'll be watching a movie, something really sad comes up, and like I feel a lot more emotional now. Like I watched the sunset. I never thought I'd be this guy. I watched the sunset and I started crying. Like a tear trickled out my eye because I was like, "Oh my God, the world's so much bigger than me, and I'm fussing over such insignificant things. And look how beautiful this thing is." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I am sitting on my windowsill crying at the sunset." But there's still every time it happens, it's not a comfortable release for me.
Yeah.
Like there is something clearly that
Yeah.
feels uncomfortable about crying, and I want to just let it out. I'm like, it would feel so nice for me just to totally let this all out, but I can't do it.
I'm so fascinated to hear about this because I think it's also like the collective masculine experience, right? This thing around vulnerability, and men are told that they shouldn't cry as boys,
Yeah,
and this idea that, from what I've heard from other men speaking about it, this idea that if you cry in front of a woman, you'll be less respected. They want you to be vulnerable, but actually they want you to be strong, and it's just so interesting to me because there's in the book Emotional Agility, there's two types of people. There's the avoidance, the bottlers, and then there's the wallowers. So after 2020, I used to cry at everything, right? So a TikTok video of a veteran coming home every sunset, every single, like an old person tripping beside me, I would just bawl. So I'm trying to work my way back into this middle place, building my masculine energy a bit and
yeah,
just being a bit like, okay, get on with it. We don't have time to cry about all of it. And just that sweet spot, I guess realizing that there's no right or wrong, there's
yeah.
no dual thinking. It's not that there's something's wrong and you need to now be more crying
No,
more.
it's actually that I want to. Like
Yeah.
I want to be again, it's another trigger, right? Where I realize that it's like my body's clearly not comfortable with this thing. Like there is something that I need to. I'm not saying I want to cry all the time, but like I want to.
Not feel blocked.
Yeah, I just don't want to feel that blockage because then it's uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
again, it's telling me something. I don't know what it's telling me. I think actually just from this conversation now, you asking that question after me telling you what I experienced in your workshop, I'm now seeing a connection to that a
Yeah.
bit more. And then I never really thought about it being blocked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe it is.
Because interestingly, if that had happened to me and I thought I might cry in a sharing circle, I would have taken that space because I would be like, I need a good cry.
Yeah, well, see, yeah, a part of me thought this would be really good for me in that same sense. I would level up as a human being if I just shared it. To be honest, I think you said last one, and I think one of the girls started speaking. If you'd had given us one more, I probably would have shared because I
Wow.
was like, I was building up the courage to do it, but I think we
Yeah.
were already a little bit over. And then when
Yeah.
you didn't, I was like, okay, I can do it. But I did want to come up to you after and tell you like I had something really profound before I left because I think it's important that
I'm
you know
actually
that.
really glad I'm finding out here in this setting. This is a
Yeah,
way better place to find out.
yeah. I mean, and I know I told some of my closest like friends and family like I had this really crazy experience, but I haven't actually said it. I think I said it to the other guys on the taxi home, and they were just maybe too wrapped in their own emotions. They were just kind of like blankly listening to me. but I haven't really actually expressed the whole thing.
And
So
now everyone who tunes
now
into
the
the
whole
podcast can
world
hear it.
knows. Okay, thank you for listening, and thank you for asking. I feel every time I share it, I feel like I get a deeper level of understanding. So I appreciate that. Um, I want to ask you about like what you do in your everyday. I know you're a facilitator. I know you're helping people like me and lots of other people around the world, figure out their traumas, or at least, come to term, see their traumas face to face, and then whether they do something about it, that's a different story. But what are you doing? What are your daily like wellness protocols that you implement in your life? Because I imagine you've been exposed to everything. What do you think for you and your
Mhm.
life are the things that you take with yourself on a daily basis?
I'm big on my M&Ms, so that's movement and meditation, or maybe triple M's, masturbation. I believe in self-pleasure as a very big manifestation portal. And
Yeah, I want
actually,
to talk about this
as a
after.
feminine woman, I believe that it's actually how you make everything come true in your life, how you become a magnet.
Keep on going. No, yeah, I'm fascinated with masturbation, so
You
continue.
are?
Yeah,
Female masturbation or just masturbation in
there's
general?
masturbation in general.
Okay, that changes things.
Okay, the three M's.
The three M's. I really believe in cyclical living. So I really sync my activities to my mood and my energy levels throughout the month. In my follicular phase, I do some weight training. I'm trying to do more of that actually. Um, and then in my luteal phase, I'm much more reflective and I eat different foods, for example. So I guess some of the things that are my non-negotiables in my wellness protocol are self-oil massage. I believe in the power of touch to reconnect with your own body. In Ayurveda, they say oil for the body is like love for the soul. So I love just opening up my lymph, giving myself like love in all these places. It's a whole ceremony for me. I make it very sacred. Um, I am big on my supplements. I've kind of figured out what works for me now. I have a bit of ADHD, so I do a lot of adaptogens. I really love my olive leaf extract. I love my L-theanine. Um, I am big on my sleep, so I melt tape to sleep.
How
And
many hours in bed?
I don't keep track. Some days, because I fluctuate based on the moon a lot. So
Mm,
around a full moon, I barely sleep.
yeah.
So
What
I
is that?
sleep
What
intuitively.
can I ask you? What is that about the full moon?
That affects women.
Does it affect women? Does it affect men as well?
Because we're on a moon cycle, the
Yeah.
28th cycle, I've noticed that it really affects women.
So I can understand that more,
Mm.
but what about men? Because I think I would say that like 60% or 70% of the time, full moons I don't sleep well.
Really, you
Yeah.
too. I do think some people, if you have cancer placements in your chart, you will feel them more because cancer is ruled by the moon. There's a quote from this guy from this, I think it's someone in JP Morgan said, millionaires look at charts, billionaires look at astrology. So
Hmm.
if you're able to connect with the energy in the air and the themes, then I think you're open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
What else?
So
I
you connect
really
to the
like,
moon, so your cycle and your habits change based on that.
yes.
You sleep intuitively.
Yes, and I eat intuitively. I try very hard to connect with what's true in the moment for my body. So I don't like ice baths in the second half of my cycle. Um, I love saunas, but again, I haven't been lately. I think maybe because I've been more dehydrated. I let my body lead day to day. I think that would be the answer. But I'm quite strict with my supplements because I've really figured out what works and I've made it habitual, so it's automatic, no effort.
So what about, okay, on days where you're not feeling motivated, you're feeling tired, like do you on those days, like where does discipline come
That's
into
such
it?
a masculine
It
question. I
is, but
love that you asked that because
yeah,
I don't think that way at all. There's no
you're
sense of
really just
I'm
like,
not
nope.
motivated. It's like, what do I feel like doing instead? So
Mm,
I'm not thinking I should be doing this. The reason why you're thinking I'm not motivated is because you're goal driven.
yeah, you
Whereas
have a
if you're
thing that you
mood
think you should
driven,
be doing.
yeah, if you meet the resistance and you're mood driven, you're like, hang on, there's a need that's not being met. And my body wants me to meet this other need, whether it's for nothingness in praise of being idle, whether it's for rest or whether it's just for a change.
But there are things in your life, I'm sure, which you feel are more needs based. Like you set a goal and you want to work towards something. Therefore,
I've tried that more this year and it's been really difficult. I
okay.
operating from a goal
Well, okay,
based
okay. I'm
life
going to
has
tell you,
been really hard for me.
because I'm going to tell you one thing that in the short time I've known you, you said to me in a message, I want to create, I've been thinking about
Consistency.
being more consistent on social media and creating
Yeah.
presence. So that is a goal
Yeah, I'm really
in a
struggling with
sense,
that. So this
right?
entire year, I think because my partner is very masculine and he's very about like you say, discipline and goals. The one thing I'm disciplined to is my alignment, the sense that um, I'm doing the work, I don't have unprocessed things, and I'm making conscious choices. But this idea of being outcome driven, really, I'm struggling because I feel then when my luteal phase comes and my capacity drops, I'm shaming myself because I'm not meeting my goals and the plans I had made for the beginning of the month. So I think I'm going to go back to my old way, which is being more process driven and more intention driven, which is to just have the intention of enjoying something, intention of leaning into it instead of setting myself these bars and then constantly feeling like I'm falling short or having to adjust them. Because the whole point of a goal is that it's kind of like a commitment. If you keep changing your goal, there's no, you kind of like can't help but be disappointed in
Yeah,
yourself. And I'm so
sure.
tired of feeling
Yeah,
disappointed in
I get
myself.
that.
But you've done this podcast every single week without fail. But you're on a 24-hour cycle. So it makes more sense that you can optimize your 24 hours and repeat that.
What about being synced to your partner? Do you believe in that?
Um, in what sense?
So like males or even females with another female, getting synced up to their cycles.
Oh yeah,
Because
hormones.
I've definitely feel like me and my wife, I know when it's coming,
Yeah.
and it like I'll get disruptions in sleep. I think of it sometimes where it's like, and I don't know, I haven't researched this, but I feel like the primal part of me is like she is going through a challenging time right now because she's going through heavy flow or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I need to be like on alert to protect her
Mm.
in case something happens. That's like
Aw.
where I think about
I
it.
think that's such great energetic attunement. I'm obsessed with the smell of my partner's armpits. And did you know that the pheromones from his sweat help me regulate my hormones?
Mm. I
It's,
do know that pheromones change based on where you're at in your cycle, and that'll obviously be
yeah,
a deterrent or an attraction to, let's say, like sex and intimacy.
yeah.
I definitely know that as well.
Also, in Diary of a CEO podcast, Stephen, in one of the
Bartlett, yeah.
in one of the episodes, they talk about how cortisol in the sweat is transferable and
Mm,
contagious. So all of this invisible
yeah,
signaling we have in the air.
very interesting.
What do
Okay,
you think of my wellness protocols, Coach Ed?
well, I was gonna say, like, is journaling a part of?
Oh, too huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
huge,
yeah,
huge.
because you hadn't mentioned that yet.
I
Are you a
guess
freehand journaler? Do you like a guided journal?
I have started a new thing this year to try to be more coherent because I'm a bit time blind. So I've started writing every month the things that show that I'm on my way and I'm on my path. And that really helps me because I'm often get confused about why I'm doing and what. So it gives me more of a narrative. I used to just journal about what feels alive in me. A lot of the times that's gratitude. Now I'm trying to live in a more structured way. So more letters to my old self, letters to my future self to
Mm,
get a sense of coherence.
I like it.
Yeah.
And are you in every morning and every night? Or is it just when you feel like it?
When I feel like what's in must out, like the need whenever I'm listening to the present moment, the things around me, to my body, I just follow that as a compass. And then the universe, the nuggets, you just walk
Yeah,
according to what's true moment to moment. All you need to do is pay attention with what's true now. That's how I live my life.
I would say we're so opposite in that sense.
But I think that's also masculine, feminine
I
energy.
definitely think it is masculine, feminine for sure. I would definitely say I've become a lot more feminine as I've gotten older, like connecting
Mm,
my feminine energy way more.
mm,
I would reckon if there was a ratio, I would have been like 99.9% masculine,
mm,
0.01% feminine.
mm.
I would say I've moved to like more like 60/40 now.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
and I actually really enjoy the feminine.
That's such a masculine thing to do as well, to give it like a number, like 60/40.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, like listening to the way that you live your life based on feel and intuition and what my body needs, I would say that there are aspects and elements, and it comes in like seasons of life.
Mm,
There are seasons of life where I definitely want to go with the flow. Like, let's say with training, for example,
yeah.
there are seasons of life where I'm not really working towards anything, where it's like, what do I feel like doing today? I don't feel like going heavy. I don't feel like just going for a walk. And I
Yeah.
will literally just act on that instinct and do it. But there are times like now where I've signed up to a competition and I'm like, I'm going to put my body, it's probably why I've fucked my neck right now, but I'm going to put my body through hard things. But I enjoy both
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think I have lived a lot of my life as a very like driven, goal orientated person.
Mm,
Like basically ignore your feelings, get on with it.
mm.
Told you about my upbringing, right? And then I think the last 3 to 4 years, I went very much the opposite way.
Yeah,
Like shied away from really hard things. I'm not saying you don't do hard things, but it's like give my body what it wants.
being easy on yourself,
Yeah. And
gentle.
now I've come back a bit where I'm like, okay, I want to know where my thresholds are.
Yeah,
I want to know what I'm actually capable of.
yeah,
Because when I exist, for me, if I'm existing too much based on like comfort and feel, which I'm not gonna lie, feels really good.
yeah,
Like I don't feel tight. I feel supple. I sleep well. My
yeah.
sex drive's good. Like all my health markers are in check. But I'm just like, I need to do something hard.
But this is the masculine experience. You're driven by purpose, by challenging yourself. That's masculine energy. That's the nature of testosterone. Me and my partner have conversations about this where he's like, if you get to the gym, you'll never regret it. I have most definitely many times over pushed and have regretted it so much and been like, okay, I can't do that again. I must stop pushing myself. This
Yeah,
this drive to be the best version of yourself, this very masculine, purpose-driven thing. Whereas I think women crave often the validation and permission to fall apart, the validation to be messy and to be all of it. Um, and that pole just feels comfortable. It feels like we can just be instead of striving.
yeah,
Whereas you probably feel very fulfilled striving.
yeah. No, I do.
But I guess it's that pendulum, like you talk about, and then finding what feels integrated and balanced in the
Yeah.
middle,
Yeah, for sure. I think striving all the time is not sustainable.
the
And
dance,
yeah, exactly. And it's just
strive.
checking in with that season of life and what you need, what version of yourself you got to bring to it.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say that I'd lean much more right now towards that side, like goal driven, push
Yeah.
hard, grit your teeth again, Ed. You've
Yeah.
been a bit soft for 3 years. Let's see if this old body is like as resilient as it used to be. That's like the story I tell myself.
Yeah.
I've also really let go of stringent routine. So I think actually this is something maybe I'm leaning more towards where you are. For a really long time, I've been so anal about lights out 7:45. Then we start breath work. Then we start stretching. Then I lie on my Shakti mat. Then I'm in bed by 8:15. And it's like, rest super regimented.
Mm.
And what's interesting is I've moved into a phase of life where like I'm very driven with my business right now. And I'm like, wanting to achieve all these amazing things, but I've let go of the regimentedness
Yeah.
because before I thought the regimentedness was an essential part of being a high performing person.
Like
Yeah,
optimizing.
if I'm not doing all this stuff outside, then I can't optimize what I'm doing in here. But actually, I've been like, okay, I want to see if I can still be a high performing individual and not be bound to all the regimens and like, so if I go to
Like
bed,
feeling reliant on it,
yeah,
the
exactly.
structure.
I feel like actually I'm making myself less resilient by having to lean on all these anal protocols I do every
Like
day.
how agile can I be
Yeah, it's like
to
if I'm so attached to 7:45 lights out, the day that it goes to 8:15, I'm a mess.
Yeah, I feel
I'm not
you.
gonna be able to sleep, and now everything's messed up, and now I'm
Yeah.
gonna be shit tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I realized that was happening.
Yeah.
So now I've actually tried to detach from that and be like, you know what? Just go with the flow. Like you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Your body will figure it out. If you need to sleep, it will sleep. If you don't, and just like I'm just such an overthinker,
Yeah.
and a very analytical person in that sense.
Yeah.
I want meaning tied to everything. Yeah, like the scientist basically. And I'm trying to let go of that right now,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling good. It's working out all right.
Yeah. It's so easy, isn't it, to become like sort of attached to a set of habit or what we see
Mm,
as better or worse, right? Because once we learn a lot of these health things or spiritual things, it feels like going backwards otherwise. And
yeah,
then you kind of, it doesn't feel like it makes
I
sense.
do think it's important to like go through those periods of like obsession and being very regimented.
Obsession is a hard one because I think we become so rigid sometimes
Mm,
that what I aim for now is to be as non dualistic as possible, to have less opinions about things,
yeah,
even as a coach, for example. And
yeah, I agree with that. I think what I was trying to say is that going from like going into extremes
Mhm.
is always like is a very powerful teacher.
It's part of the
It's a
journey.
part of a journey, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't experience the extremes, you know, like yeah, you
You're
know,
just living in the
there's no greater teacher than experience is
yeah.
the way that I always look at it, right? And it's like going to the extremes, like weighing and measuring every single gram and
Mm,
every calorie and every macronutrient
yeah.
is a really powerful activity to do, but it shouldn't govern your life. That's what I think,
Yeah.
right? But because I've done it, it's given me the skills and the tools now to be able to navigate nutrition in a much more, yeah, in a way that I think is much more well thought out and mindful.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't gone there, so like I enjoy that process of being like, I'm gonna go deep into this thing, and then I want to come out of it and then take from it
Yeah.
the things that I want to incorporate in everyday life and just have the
To
tools.
feel like you're in control of it rather than that thing having a control of you.
Exactly.
Do you have Virgo placements in your chart? Do you know?
I really don't know
Mm,
anything about like
I
astrology.
have some hypotheses. I would test them with you later.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
It's like tarot cards for me.
A whole new world.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I'd love to. I mean, now you're saying that billionaires, you know, are astrologists. I'm like,
I was talking to my friend today about at lunch about crypto, and she was telling me how all of the cycles linked with where Pluto lies in Capricorn or Aquarius. And Aquarius ends in 2043, and crypto is predicted to end somewhere 2041. All these crazy things that I don't really know about, but just how world events are linked to astrological weather, and I'm fascinated by that stuff.
wow, that's crazy. Um,
Sorry
Angela,
about all of the tangents today.
that's so good though, and we can keep on going, but we are going to bring this to a close. We have a tradition and we have a guest on this podcast, and the tradition is that we ask one question, and the question is, describe your perfect day.
I love that question. You can find out so much about people through this question. I have maybe two answers to this, two separate answers.
Your two perfect days.
Well, I think from my human Angela, my avatar or this video game character, she would fill it with things she enjoys, right? She would have a dip in the ocean. She'd be surrounded by nature. I'd probably throw in an orgasm in there. I'd probably throw in some of my favorite food. I'd have, some of the things aligned with my values, like connection. I'd feel deeply seen by the people around me, or I would be able to really deeply make someone feel seen. I'd probably do something scary, like something courageous and feel kind of limitless or exhilarated. I would have a lot of compassion in there. So I would feel connected to the wider fabric of society. I would have some really humbling conversations where really I would feel forgiving and full of grace. So that is sort of my human answer of the things I like. But I think what's more true to me now, if I think about it from a deeper level, my perfect day is actually being able to see every moment as perfect and a blessing. Because I have a strong gratitude practice. I'll often cry at something I'm grateful for because I've been in such bad places. And I'll just cry and cry about how things are so good now. But there are still many things in life where I'm reframing them into positives and then being grateful as opposed to just innately seeing it all as a blessing. So there are still things that I'm like, oh, I'm not there yet with this, or why is this happening? And I think my mission is to grow my love for all of it so that if it's my last day on earth and someone dies and a really tragic thing happens, through all of that, I still have this deep sense of gratitude. Um, and as Ram Dass said, and I love the way he put it, he said, if you have certain desires about how it ought to be, you can't see it for how it is. And that's really deep for me because this perfectionist energy I feel towards my life of wanting to, my perfect day would include a trip to Hawaii and I would learn surfing with this, beautiful stranger. And then I would also go and publicly speak somewhere and I would feel very impactful and of service. And I'm like cherry picking the experience. And so for me, my perfect day is the day that everything becomes perfect.
And it doesn't matter what that is.
It's all of it.
Yeah, nice answer. I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Angela, where can people learn more about you? Where can people work with you? How can they work with you?
My website is www.theemberwithin.com. You can also check me out on Instagram. And that's,
How can people work with you? Like, do you, I mean, I'm interested to know, like, could I
yeah,
work with you one on one?
yeah.
Do you do online stuff? I know you do like manual therapy of some sort. You probably don't call it that. You do obviously like workshops and sessions like I did?
I
What are you
love the
offering?
way you've taken my things and you've put your own words to it, like sets of power breathing.
Yeah,
It's so great, Ed. I coach online and I still have spots this month. So if you want, you can book a discovery call with me to see if we're a good fit. I work with people week on a week to week basis. I also do group breathwork sessions. I do sharing circles. I do cool events like masculine, feminine, tantra, relationships. Um, and I might be running a retreat in Mexico in December, which I'll be stealing Al for. um, but yeah, I guess I'm still figuring out what other ways and offerings I can have, but most of it is coaching,
I love it.
online coaching from anywhere in the world.
Angela, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for, of course, as I said, like the experience I had on Sunday with you, but also for making this time. You don't live in Hong Kong. I know you've got a tight schedule. You're busy. You're catching up with family, friends, relatives, I'm sure, and you've got your own business to look after. But thank you for joining me on the podcast today, sharing so openly. I feel like I've learned so much more about obviously you, but breath work as well. And I feel like this has opened up a whole new world for me that I want to go and explore a bit more. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed. I really enjoy listening to your podcast from the snippets I've seen. So it is an honor for me to be here, honestly. An honor. Thank you.